I started with an 18.5 by 33-inch frame that I picked up at a garage sale. I took the glass out and I painted it blue. I flipped it over and got the silicone ready. It's silicone caulk that I use in the caulk gun. It has a little diddly that I guess I just found about 6 months ago to unclog it. I guess to start it, it's to start it, but you can also use it after it's been started and dried up. Then you can put that back in it and it'll unclog it. Anyway, I cleaned up the glass, put the glass back in, and used the caulk gun to put a bead of caulk all the way around the perimeter. I let it set for 24 hours until it was dry. Then I cleaned up any excess caulk with a razor blade. Next, I took painter's tape and put it around the perimeter over the caulk. Now, the caulk serves two purposes. It holds the glass in place, and it also keeps resin, acts as a sealant to keep resin from leaking through when I flip it over and put resin on the top. And then the painter's tape is just an extra precaution for any leaking resin, because if you've seen any of my old videos, I've done both and then I've still had leaks. So you really have to be careful. You don't want this resin getting anywhere that you don't want it to be. And even though you have all of these precautions, you should still do it when you resin it and have it flipped over. You should still have it on some type of protective paper or something else in case something is to leak out. After I was done with that, I flipped it over, and I needed to do a little bit of paint touch-up, so I ended up having to put some painter's tape around the perimeter of this and touch it up with the blue paint that I had used. And then I also had to seal it. All of this I should have done while the glass wasn't in, and then I wouldn't have had to have gone through all this, but sometimes we forget. Anyway, after I did the touch-up painting, I sealed it with DIY wax. That was the easiest way to do it. It goes on with a soft cloth, and then you have to buff it. Next, I used Celestial Fireglass in something called Iridescent Medium. The brand name is Artist Loft. I actually bought this for another reason, but I ended up mixing this with the Celestial Fireglass to give it a little bit of a white iridescent appearance, and I was using it to make the snowman. And it worked out beautifully. So you just take a big spoonful and mix it in, and here you can see the difference between what it was and what it is now. And it really turned out pretty. So you have to put some kind of paper down to let this dry out after you've mixed it in thoroughly. And don't use any regular paper, like use the parchment or paper that has some kind of a wax so that it doesn't stick to it. So after I laid out the wax paper, I poured this all out on it and tried to separate it as much as I can, because it will stick together as it dries. The next morning I had to loosen it a little bit from the paper, and then I crumbled it all between my hands because some of the pieces stuck together, but it really turned out beautiful. Next, I dump out my dried glass, and that turned out pretty, and I start shaping my snowman. I think I shape them and reshape them a couple of times. Then after that, I dump out all my little black stones and start looking for buttons and eyes and little pieces for the mouth. Then I find a piece for the nose. The orange glass just doesn't work, so I found a piece of kind of like a light yellow, and I used the Krylon stained glass tangerine orange spray paint to paint it orange. This piece I think looks more like a carrot. I have a previous video that has all the different Krylon spray paints, the stained glass spray paints, and I can show you all the different colors that there are. And this actually works really well on clear glass, and it is translucent. Then I used some iridescent black glass that I had broken up for a previous video, and I tried to make a little top hat for them. And then I decide he needs a scarf, and I start shuffling through my blue glass. Now this blue glass is glass that I've prepared myself in a tumbler. It's glass that I've picked up at garage sales and thrift stores and smashed up and put through my tumbler for up to a week. And when glass breaks, it breaks in all different ways. There's really no telling. And sometimes some of the pieces will break up like tempered glass in the little tiny pieces. And that's what I'm pulling out of this pile of glass now, are the little tiny ones that turned out like tempered glass, but they also were tumbled for probably up to a week. But this blue glass is so pretty, and this is what I'm going to make his scarf out of. And then I decide to make his hat out of it also. I used a couple sticks for his arms. I put a stripe across the top of his beanie with the white glass, and then I put a big ball on top covering up the snowflake with the white glass also. Now, if you ever want to remove paint from the glass, you just take a little razor and it'll come right off. It cleans up real easy. And then I took some more white paint and made a couple more stripes on his scarf. Now I'm ready for the resin. For this project, I'm using Clear Cast 7000. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin that I purchased on Amazon. When using resin, I always use gloves. I always use a respirator. I do it in a well-ventilated area as best I can. I have the window open in the room. The AC is not on because the temperature is so nice today. And this room gets closed off, and nobody ever goes in it. So I mix equal parts of resin 1-to-1, and when you first start, it looks clear, and then you have to mix it from 2 to 3 minutes, scraping the bottom, scraping the sides. As you start to mix it, it becomes cloudy, and then right about when you're done, you'll see that it's clear again, and you'll know that the resin is done and ready to pour. I pour the resin over the glass first, and I use the spoon to kind of divvy it out, because I'm hoping that this container actually has 2 cups of resin, and I'm hoping that it will be enough for the whole project. I'm hoping I don't have to mix any more up, so I'm trying to be careful to cover everything but not to use too much. Now, they describe the majority of the resins as being self-leveling, but in a way that's true, but you still have to put it along the edges and make sure it goes into the corners. If you don't do it, you're really gonna have some problems with coverage. Now, some resins are thicker than other resins. This resin, Clear Cast 7000, happens to be one of the thinner resins. Another resin that I've used, that Total Boat resin, is super, super thick, and you really have to push that around a lot. But anyway, like I said, I'm trying to be kind of careful with this and divvy it up evenly so that I don't have to pour any more, and I feel like it's just enough to go over everything. Next, I use rubbing alcohol to clean up any of the resin spills along the edges. This works wonderful, and it's also good to clean up any spills anywhere else, and if you get it on your hands, it'll take the resin out. That is before it's dried. It's good to get resin out. And I mean, I've even gotten resin in my hair before, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was going to have to cut it, but it hadn't dried yet, so I used the rubbing alcohol and it took it right out. It was wonderful. Next, I'm going to use the heat gun to get rid of the bubbles. My heat gun has 2 settings, low and high. I always put it on the low setting because the high setting is too strong and it will push the resin right up over the sides. And then on the back is the temperature setting, and I usually set it between 500 and 600 degrees Fahrenheit. It usually takes a couple minutes to get rid of the bubbles, but it can take up to 5 minutes. Now, this particular resin, Clear Cast 7000, hardly has any bubbles at all. So next I'm going to use the tube confetti. This tube confetti I picked up at a place called Dollar Depot. They also have it at the Dollar Tree. And if you can't find that, I'm sure you can use some other kind of glittery or iridescent confetti for the snow. I thought about using that same glass, but it would be too much of that glass, and I to be able to tell the difference between the two. So anyway, this tube confetti is kind of tricky. It's best if you put it on a piece of paper and kind of bend it and then sprinkle it on. It kind of directs it in the area you want it to go. If you put it in your hand and try to sprinkle it on, it has this kind of static cling. See, like it even has the static cling to the paper there. It's hard to get it off of the paper, but it's easier doing it that way than putting it in your hand. And after I put it all down, then I press it down a little bit into the resin, and I find it sticks really well. And then when he's done, he has to lay flat on a level surface overnight up to 24 hours between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So here he is, Mr. Snowman. I just glued this little star on, so hopefully he doesn't fall off. I used some E6000. But I think he turned out real cute. And just so you know, when I finished him, I looked at him and I thought, ooh, well, there was a little bit of, not very many white pieces of glass here, and then the blue kind of stuck out funny. So what I did was I took a couple more pieces of white glass and put it there, and then fixed the blue how I wanted it, put another couple pieces, and then mixed up just a little bit of resin and drizzled it right over this spot here. So just because when your project is finished, you know, something's wrong with it and you wished you had done it different, there are a lot of ways that you can fix it, and you can certainly mix up a little bit more resin. You just have to be careful not to mix too much resin up, because then it'll spill over and you'll kind of see a little bit of a line. I think you can see maybe a tiny one there, but it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, I think she or he, Mr. Snowman, turned out real cute, and I don't know where I'm gonna hang him up, but I'm gonna find a place. The other thing I was gonna say, you know, this glass is this Celestial fire glass that I got on Amazon, and I had bought, and I'm not doing a promotion for it. I think you should find the cheapest glass that you can, or even break it up yourself, which I've done many a times. But this, I had sent away for several different glasses, and some of them had like a blue tinge or a green tinge, and I didn't really care for that, so I sent it back. But honestly, that was like $10 cheaper. And if I had kept that and I was just gonna cover it with this anyway, you wouldn't have known the difference. So, so that's one thing. And the other thing is, you know, this glass here is glass that I tumbled myself, but you can also make that yourself if you don't. This is from actually some old blue plates, glasses. But what I did was I took some of this glass, just to show you what you could do if you don't have this color or you're wanting a different color. And I used some alcohol ink, and I just mixed it in like a drop, but this is only a tiny bit of glass in here. So let me show you how pretty this turned out. No, I hope you can see that. Yeah, isn't that pretty? And that's just a drop of alcohol ink. So, you know, you could do a whole bunch of it if you wanted to make it for a scarf or for something else on the snowman. So, whoops. So anyway, that's another option for this, or you could break up your own glass and use the alcohol ink to dye it. So I hope that helps you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you happen to make something like this, I would love to see it. And my email address is supposed to be under my about information on the YouTube channel. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for watching.